this is my 25th Radio Row, and Leigh Steinberg, the man, joins us here on 365 Sports. I've seen you here many times. You were a part of the Earl Campbell event at times as well. How you been, man? How many? This has been a bunch for you, right? The Radio Row.
Forever. Probably from when it started.
From when it started, and of course it went from like 8 to 10, 12 stations to now you might have 75 or 100. So in your business, how much has it changed in just recent years? Has it changed much negotiating, the salary caps going up again? And how do you keep up with it, man?
Well, first of all, in the midst of a cratered pandemic-type economy, CBS and Fox raised their offer on television rights for the NFL by 83%. So they virtually doubled their TV rights. That means that the cap goes up, everything changes, salaries go up. It's like a bonanza for everything involved in the sport. That's changed. You now have social media in a dramatic way where the currency of endorsements and everything else becomes how many followers do you have on Snapchat, how many followers do you have on LinkedIn or TikTok or Instagram. And so the whole way of communicating and how information flows is different. And pro football just becomes more and more and more dominant and popular. Last year, 81 of the top 100 Nielsen-rated shows were nighttime NFL football. I mean, not only the most popular sport, the most popular form of entertainment.
It's almost not invincible. It's not invincible as far as a product, but it's pretty damn close, isn't it?
It's dominating this country, and it's supported by fantasy sports. It's supported by merchandise and memorabilia. There's a whole lot that supports it.
What's changed for you in recruiting athletes now? Because it is, when you started, you were an agent and you could be an entertainer. Now you have entertainers who are in that business, which obviously, there's some glitz and glam to some of the agencies out there, and you have different competitors. Obviously, you're going to go for what who you think you can help and who you think is a fit for your agency and what you can do for them. But it's different now than it used to be because it was just agents doing agent things, and now it's people who are business-oriented or entertainment-oriented over that as well.
So that roll-up occurred where entertainment and sports converged, and the real interest of some of the entertainment groups is not just the fee from negotiating a player contract. It's doing content. It's doing sports-themed motion pictures and television and video games and websites and being part of the ownership of everything. The other thing that's changed really dramatically is NIL. Because all of a sudden, in the old days, meaning 2 years ago, in the old days, we would not meet a football player until his junior year, right? And now a 16 or 17-year-old is doing NILs and being approached by agents. And if you don't talk to the next great quarterback when he's a senior or junior in high school, and a marketing agent does that also represents players, you may never get a chance to talk to him. So you have people like the quarterback at Alabama, Bryce Young, had $1 million in marketing deals before he ever played a down of football. So that alters everything.
Have you had any discussions or you have any examples, or have you heard stories about college players saying no to entering the NFL because they can make the kind of money they're now making in college?
No, and I'm not sure that will happen. It's an interesting concept, but the players at the top of the NFL draft get $20 million signing bonus.
Yeah.
Pretty hard to do that type of marketing. But I have heard that alums at different schools have joined together in collectives, so that especially in the Power 5 conferences, you have, your Alabamas and SCs and Ohio States can offer a player in recruiting extraordinary amount of money to come to their school.
Inducements, basically.
Right, and it's legal.
Yep.
And so what's going to happen is the distance between those colleges that have this massive alum base of dedicated alums and the smaller schools is just going to get more delineated and distant.
Leigh Steinberg has represented some of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game, including one right now in Patrick Mahomes. But you had the great quarterbacks, and you've always been able to have kind of that niche. Why?
Well, David, I think that very early I learned that in football, it's the quarterback, stupid.
If only general managers and some coaches would understand that.
No, but you saw that this was the player that got a premium in contracts, got drafted higher than might otherwise be the case in the initial draft, played a long career. The whole game's focused on, Patrick Mahomes playing against the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, and they're like the movie stars. So a lot more revenue base coming from them, and they can make more of an impact in role modeling like we ask them to do at the high school, collegiate, and professional level. And, all of a sudden, Tyler, Texas, the birthplace of champions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, you're right. And Craig, who does a show with us, who's not here this week, but he did Patrick Mahomes' games when he was at White House High School.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, and again, when did you first hear about him? Was he at Tech, or did you know even before that?
No, at Tech.
Yeah.
At Tech. We were in Tyler, and I was with Earl Campbell and Gary Baxter, and they were trying to do a health and wellness center in Tyler. And we happened to meet with the mayor and his wife. We were having dinner at this pretty restaurant downtown, and they were talking about Patrick Mahomes. And the mayor's wife was saying, oh, but he won't be on your radar because he's just going to play baseball. And but we're pretty hyper-focused. I thought he was a pretty fair football player and he might have a chance. And then it turned out that he had baseball gifts, but he just loved football.
Yeah.
And then the next thing led to a meeting. Patrick Sr. was in Grapevine, Texas for a baseball tournament, and we met with he and Randy, and that got it started.
He is, and it's funny to me now that, like, if you go back and look at the video of the draft and people going, well, I don't know about this guy and Texas Tech and all that, it seems kind of silly now that anybody would have ever, like, doubted it, but he was not the first player taken. He was 12th overall. 10. Deshaun Watson was 12th. They're right there. So, like, the two most gifted quarterbacks in that class were probably lower down. And but those days, that's probably maybe one of the more stressful days when you've got, like, a guy like Patrick, or did you expect that to be that way?
Not really, because it was not stressful. It was exciting because teams talk openly to us in scouting. If a team is going to take a quarterback, they're going to talk with the agent about it first, if they trust him, not to cross-fertilize. So at that point, we were aware of Kansas City's interest, we were aware of Houston's interest, we were aware of New Orleans' interest. So it was just, what's somebody going to trade ahead of New Orleans or Houston? And Kansas City seemed very determined. So we knew it would be around the 10, 11, 9 spot. So you carefully prepare Patrick for that. and the family for that. So everybody sort of knew what was coming. It'd be somewhere there.
You know, he's got, obviously, when you get drafted where he's drafted, and then who you are as a player, and he's a great young man too. I mean, hell of a quarterback, but an incredibly good, gifted, and a caring young man. He's got like a percentage of a franchise. And is that stuff that also became part of what you helped him do, other than just making sure his first NFL contract was set?
Oh, absolutely. Our agency, Chris Cabot handled the marketing, and part of the new mode for athletes is the concept of entrepreneurship, that they can be tomorrow's owners of businesses, that they can be businessmen, and that's an aspiration. Ultimately, I have a few players who own parts of NFL teams. So you're looking for all of that. And then you got a really bright young man who's got his own goals.
He's so full of personality, and I know that like some guys you have to coach it out of them. They're going to be good later on at that, but he was instantly affable, personable. He's extremely normal for someone who is so big time. So is he one of the easier guys you've ever had? Like when people, I'm sure, are knocking on your door to get him involved with you, but as far as just dealing with everyday stuff, I would think that Patrick is probably the easiest athlete you can possibly imagine to deal with.
He is easy because he's so bright and the opposite of self-centered. And so having someone who's that bright is helpful for everything.
One of my favorite moments of his this year was Henry Winkler, the Fonz, great actor. I had no idea he was a lifelong Kansas City Chiefs fanatic, but they had that really sweet moment, and it was so real and genuine. Like I think it should endear people to Patrick even more that they had this really nice moment, and they're like, I'd love to be a fly on the wall when they have dinner. That'd be great just to hear them talking.
I met Henry up in the suite during the game. It was sort of fun if you're old enough to remember Happy Days.
Oh, I am. I am. That's my wheelhouse, I think, back when I was in high school. So what was there a first player that that turned you into more than just another agent?
Well, I think the very first player I had was Steve Bartkowski, and he signed
Atlanta Falcons, yeah.
He was the first pick overall in the draft back in 1975, and he signed the biggest contract ever for a rookie. And then I think the charitable and community focus that we took, asking athletes to set up a high school scholarship fund, collegiate give back, and then a charitable foundation with the leading political figures, business leaders, and community leaders to establish a foundation. I think that was a demarcation point. Then in the 80s, I had 1 year where Steve Young signed the biggest contract in sports history, and Warren Moon signed the biggest contract in NFL history.
Yeah.
So that was a jumping off point.
And you have, not everything has been smooth for you. There are ups and downs in life. We've had players on that have been through things, lost everything, and then come back and whatever. You gut it out. I mean, you're a tough son of a you-know-what, aren't you? I mean, you really are, Leigh. It's a great story.
Well, I struggled with alcohol, and next month, if everything goes well, knock on wood, I'll be 13 years continuously sober. But I struggled with it, and I found a path back.
Is it because of the pressures that you dealt with? Or
no, it was what happened.
You don't mind me asking?
No, it's fine, because I would like to be of help to
Sure.
other people still struggling. My two boys were diagnosed with something called retinitis pigmentosa, which is an eye disease that starts out with night blindness and ends up blind, so they're both blind. And my father then died of cancer, from esophageal cancer, and we lost a home in a beachside city to mold.
I remember that.
And it was, I felt powerless to protect everyone close to me, and I turned to the wrong thing. I turned to alcohol.
It's incredible though, and that you can tell the story. We've had a lot of those stories of comebacks. Eric Kramer's come back from some of the personal things he dealt with. Somebody asked me a question as far as when Warren. Let's see, how many players do you have in this draft?
We've got about 5 or 10, but I can't go through them all.
Oh no, that's fine. But you're constantly going to have your hand in that mix.
Right. We've got a whole younger generation of agents that is hyperactive. I keep my hand in, but it's their time.
Does having Patrick Mahomes or others you've had, does that help you win recruiting battles?
Of course.
Sure.
Yeah. Players want to go to an agent they think is handling similarly situated players. So you want to be a first rounder. Well, I've had 64 first-round draft picks. You want to be a franchise quarterback. You want to be, so they'll analogize. The most important thing is to take care of your current clients, not worry about recruiting next year's clients, because happy clients will be the best way of adding new ones.
That's what we do with our sponsors as far as what we do every day. I mean, it's been great with what we do. Leigh Steinberg is with us here at Super Bowl 57 Radio Row NFL Media Headquarters.
So for our viewers, and some may know this, some may not, it's pretty famous about you, but you were one of the main inspirations for the movie Jerry Maguire. How much input did you have in that, of them talking to you about what you do? Because it is the one thing, even before I met you and we started Super Bowls, you knew about you was that you were very personal with deep with the clients, and it wasn't just send me a sheet of paper, I'm going to send you back a sheet of paper until we get to a number where my client will stop asking me questions.
So Cameron Crowe, the director-writer of Jerry Maguire, came to me in 1993 and asked if he could follow me around for a film that would center on the character of a sports agent. And he had written a book about posing as a student in a California high school that was called Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And I thought the movie was hilarious, so I said, okay. And he went everywhere I went for the next year and a half. He went to the draft with me in New York where Drew Bledsoe was drafted. He came to Pro Scouting Day at USC. He came to the league meetings where I was showing off a free agent, Tim McDonald. He came to games with me. He came to the Super Bowl. And I told him lots and lots of stories. And then he wrote a script, and I vetted it as technical advisor. And there's a lot of life there up on the screen. And then I worked with the actors. I took Cuba Gooding Jr. down to the Super Bowl here in Arizona and made him pretend he was a wide receiver all week. And
that's awesome.
I actually had to show the quarterback in the film, played by Jerry O'Connell, how to throw a spiral because he had gone to NYU and they didn't have football there.
Well, I mean, Cuba won an Academy Award for that.
Yes,
so
it was a great movie, and that's awesome. Okay, we had Barry Switzer on once, and we were asking him about recruiting, and I asked him about the one player that got away, and he mentioned Earl Campbell, that basically Oklahoma almost had Earl, who was a great friend and obviously one of the great people of all time. Was there one that ever got away from you that is the one, or you had so many? Young and Aikman, and now you got Mahomes. We've mentioned Warren Moon.
Well, I had that wonderful year where I picked Ryan Leaf over Peyton Manning.
Oh, that was there. You go.
Hey, look, there's another comeback story right there, Ryan.
Yeah,
Leaf,
that's another great story.
Yeah.
I mean, but no one.
Well, you would never remember that Ryan was considered the better long-term prospect.
No. Well, no, people don't want to remember that now. I mean, like that was at the time.
That was the way it was. And I had there was a previous situation where it was Rick Meyer and Drew Bledsoe.
Uh-huh.
And I had picked the lesser-known player. and Drew Bledsoe, and he became the first pick in the draft and made Pro Bowls and took a team in the Super Bowl. So.
I know you got to run, and we appreciate you every year. It's been fantastic. Your party, you've got another one. You do. It is truly. You used to walk around Radio Row with these placards of tickets, and it's incredible what it raises money for, and you've done that forever.
So this will be 36, and we're holding it at the Arizona Diamondbacks minor league baseball park, raising money for the homeless. We're going to have a brain health summit that talks about concussion and how we can cure it. We've got some other modalities. We're giving humanitarian awards to a David Ziegler, the general manager of the Raiders, and to Bruce Smith and a variety of other people. And it'll be a good place for networking and learning and all the rest.
It's a fantastic event.
It is as classy as it could be.
Thank you.
Man, we appreciate that. You said that's a new generation of agents and all that. Do you still get your competitive juices?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. You got a feeling you'll have that all the way.
Yeah. Absolutely. I don't think I'm going to sit home and garden anytime soon.
Hey, man, great to see you. Appreciate
Nice to
everything
see you.
you've done. Great to
Pleasure.
have you. Leigh Steinberg,
Thank you.
the agent, with us. We're at Radio Row Super Bowl 57 in Phoenix.